have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
My prepper brothers and sisters, you've arrived at the bunker. Grab a cup of joe, a stout tea, or maybe your favorite adult beverage. This is the prepper's place for open discussion on whatever the hell we want. Brought to you whatever the hell way we want. This is the new format of Top's Bunker. So sit down, kick back, post up, relax, and welcome to the bunker.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Military-industrial complex.
And we as a people will get to the promised land.
We will make America strong again, proud again, safe again. We will make America great again.
Preppers, survivalists, off-gridders, homesteaders, and like. Welcome to Top's Bunker, a podcast for preppers. Leave a voicemail to get on the show, speakpipe.com/tops, or use the live message option on our Facebook group, Top's Bunker. Email us at shtf@topsbunker.com or visit the site topsbunker.com. I want to thank y'all for joining us. We got a great show for you tonight. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most rewarding journeys you can embark on, cultivating your own produce right at home. Imagine stepping into your backyard or onto your balcony or patio where lush greens, juicy red tomatoes, crisp cucumbers and peppers and carrots and all the herbs and spices you could ever want are just a few steps away and waiting to be harvested. The satisfaction of picking fresh vegetables and knowing exactly how they were grown is a feeling like no other. You may have a sprawling garden filled with raised beds, or you may have just a few pots or buckets sitting on a windowsill. There's something really magical about connecting with the earth and watching life flourish from your own hands. Rhonda and I are joined by our co-hosts, Buddy and Jeremy, to explore everything from selecting the right plants for your space to organic gardening tips and even pest management. Buddy and Jeremy are seasoned gardeners who will share their secrets to success as well as a few failures so that we can learn from their mistakes. By the end of this episode, we hope that you'll be inspired to start your own garden and grow your way to self-sufficiency and freedom. So let's get digging. Buddy, can you just tell us what farm to table actually means?
Okay, farm to table is an actual movement. It's a sustainable gardening or sustainable living concept to where I'll try to nutshell it for you and break it down. The farmer will produce food and it comes to your table or to a restaurant by different means. There's a farm to restaurant that goes straight from the farmer, where restaurants will sell to a restaurant directly through a co-op or through sometimes even a CSA, which is basically a subscription box kind of thing. And sometimes there's a market that they sell at. You know, I've known chefs to go to the farmer's market, you know, on a Saturday morning and go and get food for the next week. So, you know, that's one way a restaurant, and most of these restaurants that do that, when you go on the menu, you'll see, you know, they'll be proud of, you know, we support local farmers and use fresh produce from, you know, their farms. Sustainable buzzwords they use. A CSA, like I said, is like a farmer or a mediary person. Usually it's a co-op, It's kind of like the co-op you go to buy food, your animal food from. The local granary uses it as a co-op, or you might know it by the co-op, but the farm co-op is a mediator between the consumer and the farmer that will go out and have a network of farmers they buy from, and then turn around and sell their products. So it's
kind of like a broker.
Yeah, it's a broker. Yeah, exactly, a broker. There's farm tables that people sit outside their own property, where they sit out there and sell eggs and produce and stuff. So that's another part of that. For our purposes, we're talking more about garden to your table.
Yeah, or farmers market. Rhonda and I do a lot of shopping at the farmers market every Saturday, and there's a stand, like you say, it's owned by a family. It used to be their farm, but they got so big that now they buy from the Amish farms. I think there's one or two Amish farms that they're buying from, and the food is amazing and it's incredibly cheap. So we don't buy our produce at the grocery store anymore. And not only that, but they're running sustainable, non-GMO, I would assume an heirloom type product, because we took a lot of the seeds and stuff from that, and we actually grew our own vegetables straight from farmers market.
That's one of the best ways to go too.
Yeah, and the cool thing about the farmers market is, you're going on usually a Saturday morning, sometimes a Tuesday night or a Thursday night, an alternative night, and on a Saturday morning is usually the big days. 90% of the people there, you're meeting the actual farmer. And so you can ask them questions. Hey, are you organic? Or are you chemical free? What kind of practices do you use?
Right.
You can ask questions. And
so to our audience, we're trying to get across tonight on the benefits and how-tos of gardening. In other words, our own farm, our own garden to table, and from farmers markets to our table, rather than having to go to the big stores and pay the big money and get the GMO type product and the stuff that might not be as good for you as the other way. So you're going to save money, be healthier, and eventually learn how to do it yourself. That's what we're going to be doing here tonight.
Yeah, and believe it or not, there's times where I had just a bumper crop of zucchini and squash. For once, the squash bugs didn't get them, right? And so, and a bunch of extra eggs. We stuck my niece's actual daughter, stuck her out there on the road in front of the house, and with a sign that said, chicken eggs and produce, and stuck a whole table out there, and told her whatever she made she could keep. And within an hour she made $60. I think she ended up making $132 within a couple hours. So I mean, that's another way. You have extra produce, you can go to your neighbors and hand it out, or go out and make a couple extra dollars so you can buy a new hoe or some extra equipment that you're looking at.
Right. So what we've got is, when we go downtown, which is like 35, 40 minutes away, the town where, I guess you want to call it, the mains, right, we're right in front of City Hall. There's like a big giant sort of circular parking lot where all these sort of tents, it's almost like a farmer's market, but this kind of mix match of different things that are being sold there. But there is an Amish cart, and they've got all of this produce on it. So we go there every Saturday and we pick up all of our vegetables, anything we need produce wise. And then we just go right across the street, and that's where this giant farmers market stand is set up. They got everything from bananas to zucchinis to watermelons to peppers, everything you can think of. We just kind of pick through it all. And we do most of our produce shopping right there. And then anything we need from the box store, milk and that kind of stuff, box stuff and canned stuff, and that sort of thing we get from the grocery store. Ice pops, got to have my ice pops. Love my ice pops. So that's what we do. And then now, obviously, we have our garden, which you can see on the YouTube channel that's coming along. And, we're getting a little bit of that and putting it on the, like today, I make about a loaf of bread every week. Okay. Sometimes two. So I supply a lot of the bread to the house just from flour that I buy from the store, and some yeast, some salt, and that's pretty much it, and water. But I flavor it with other things that I have. Like today, I went out to the garden. I picked a bunch of chili peppers, red ones, green ones, some banana peppers. And basically what I do is I de-seeded them, chopped them all up, put some garlic that came from the garden, put it into a pan, and I roasted them. Then I cooled those off, and I put them into the dough. So I made basically a chili pepper garlic bread loaf. It's actually cooking right now as we speak in the oven.
But
Oh,
that
that
smells
sounds
amazing.
Yeah.
You made me hungry.
That's my version of farm to table.
Well,
Nice.
and here locally in my area, the big thing is hatch. Everybody puts hatch chilies and everything.
I love
Uh,
hatch chilies. Now,
they
aren't
go,
hatch chilies the same as Fresno's, or is that something different?
it's a little different.
Hatch chilies taste the best once you roast them. It really brings out the flavors.
Yeah, and I actually have a friend that goes to the place Hatch, the actual place where they grow the Hatch chilies every year, and he rents a U-Haul and he fills it up and he brings it back. And he's also a market gardener, so he has a little farm that he goes and grows stuff and sets up his own market on Saturday, and it's next to a large town. I don't think he's certified organic, and but he makes his own. He roasts the Hatch chilies, and they do bread now, and they sell it to the local restaurants. There, you can make some extra income right out of your garden. It's pretty neat how these guys started doing it, just to feed themselves, and started businesses out of it. Pretty amazing.
Very nice.
The other thing I prepared for was different, like pressure canning, flash freezing, and hot water bath canning.
What is flash freezing?
The quickest way you can actually preserve some of your garden. So let's say you take okra, for instance, and it's kind of a bad example because frozen okra, to me, when you cook it, it gets kind of rubbery, but that's just my take on it. But so you take the produce out and you wash it. You wash it really good. I usually field wash and then get all the dirt and mud and stuff off of it and then bring it into the kitchen. And I have one of those big salad washers, lettuce washers. It's kind of like a plunger on top, and I'll wash them really good. Get fresh water and a few different times, run it through the system. And then you take a cookie pan out with some wax paper or a rubber mat, some kind. Something that'll keep it, a barrier to keep it from freezing to the cookie sheet. And then you lay the still damp vegetables down on the pan. You fill the pan up, and you make sure you get a little bit of space in between them. You lay that cookie sheet in your freezer. Try to get it as close to the motor, the fan that's in there, and you leave it for about 20, 30, 45 minutes or whatever till it gets a good freeze. And then you pull it out, and then you take them and you can put it in a container. You can put it into a Ziploc and try to take all the air out. Or the way I do it is I use a food vacuum sealer. So I put it all in the vacuum seal and vacuum seal it out, and I try to make it to where, okay, well, if I'm feeding two people, then I would have enough to feed two people out of one vacuum seal. And then I write a little date on it with a Sharpie, goes right back into the freezer, and then repeat.
So you portion it out, and then how long will they last in the freezer?
Usually, there's no hard and fast rule, but over a year, I kind of start getting.
You're talking about harvesting your summer stuff and being able to eat it through the winter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
I ate
awesome.
Spring.
We had so much okra last year out of 2 plants, out of a container, that we've been eating. And I'm going to say we don't eat okra that much. Growing up, I did. It was a staple in our house. But now, a few times we've had it this summer. We still have some, So gumbo is coming up, so I'll probably use the rest of it in a gumbo. So
Could you also do that same technique with anything you would get like at a farmer's market?
yeah, I was going to say you can take the food you buy at the farmer's market and preserve it as well. I mean, there's no rule against it. I would say that would be an excellent idea, especially if somebody the Amish have or somebody at the farmer's market has some really good tomatoes or some really good zucchinis or something that
How do you preserve those?
There's different methods for different things. The high acidic type fruits and vegetables, you can hot water bath them, and I won't go into the techniques. You can look it up, hot water bath online, and you get all different types of.
What's the finished product on a hot water bath? Is it a jar of something?
Yes, it's a jar. And
That sounds to me like canning.
Yeah, it's canning. There's pressure canning, and then there's hot bath.
Oh, okay. So I'm so sorry. When you said hot water bath, I wasn't thinking. I know what you're talking about. Where you put them in the jars, you got to make sure they're clean. Then you put the jars into the water, and they sort of heat up And then when they're at a certain temperature, you pull them out and you cap them, and after a little while, when it cools, it sucks the cap down.
Yeah, just don't leave a lot of space in there. If you have,
You want to go all the way to the top.
all the way to the top. Had a friend of the family make some spicy sweet pickles the other day, and told her that she'd have to, keep making those because I love them so much or whatever. She couldn't come over to the house without any from now on. That's the toll she has to pay to cross the bridge. But and a lot of stuff canning. We can salsa all the time, and it's good for about 2 weeks. It's not water bath. We clean out the jars and stuff. And actually made a salsa garden this year, and the only thing I didn't grow was the garlic. Everything else was growing out of the garden.
Right.
And
right.
Man, it is so good. And the lime. Okay, I didn't grow limes this year, but put a little lime juice in with it, and nice big thick salsa. I mean, oh my goodness.
I pickled pickles, cucumbers. I did those in the past 2 weeks. I've done pickled cucumbers, which I made some really nice crunchy dills, a giant jar of them. And I actually threw in some cayenne peppers into the brine as well to give them a tiny bit of bite to it. And they came out awesome. Probably the best pickles I've ever made. And I also did jalapenos. So I sliced them up into rings. And they're supposed to be like you buy in the store, tamed jalapenos. They weren't tamed. My peppers that come out of my garden are so freaking hot they will burn paint off of a car.
Nice.
What color is the soil that you're using to grow your peppers?
Black.
Yeah. So peppers have a tendency to be able to grow in a lot of different places. If you have a sandier or looser soil, kind of like they grow out in the desert, they're not as hot. The darker the soil, the more nutrient dense the soil, the hotter the pepper you get.
Oh, okay. And we also add nutrients like we do the coffee grounds, we do the egg shells, we do that sort of stuff to it as well. So that's why. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
you
yeah,
get-
but I didn't make these things. I'm sorry, Jeremy. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you get a jalapeno on some coffee, and you got a wild thing going on there.
Hey,
Yeah. So we didn't do what you're saying, buddy, where we canned them and they sucked them down. I made them just a quick pickling method with vinegar and water, some salt, and maybe some spices, and just did a refrigerator deal. So you leave them in there for about 10 days, and then they're good for about, I don't know, 4 to 5, 6 weeks. They're not going to last forever, but they'll last a while.
yeah, that's it. According to some family members, as long as it has vinegar in it, you can have it forever. Just look at their ketchup and some of the other things they have in their refrigerators that 3 years ago expired, but it's got vinegar in it.
Yeah, the vinegar does help, but it also depends on the method in which you used. I learned a lot of really, I don't know if I would say hard lessons, but I learned a lot of lessons over this past year of our garden in regards to canning and preserving. I know that much.
We're going into a season here. We're in the fall, going to be in the winter, where most of us aren't going to have a garden or a farmer's market. So if we had those things now, even if you just go to the farmer's market and get the stuff now, you can go to the grocery store and you can do the same thing. It's going to cost you more, and the vegetables aren't as good, but you could do the same thing now.
You were talking about preserving tomatoes. It's extremely easy. You got your salsas and you got your sauces. We made our pasta sauce, and we made several jars of that. But you can actually take tomatoes, put them in a baggie that you're going to use to suck all the air out of, and you pull all the air out using your vacuum sealer. Drop them in the freezer; they freeze perfectly, and there's no loss of taste and no loss of anything. And then when you're ready to actually bring them back out, you take the tomatoes out, run them under some hot water, just a quick little, hey, I'm back in the world. Put them on a pan, and then go ahead and cut the bottoms off where you have a flat bottom, and then throw those into the oven. And when they start to loosen up, all you're doing is you're actually grabbing the skin and pulling up and off, and the skin comes completely off. So if there's any risk of freezer burn or loss of anything there, you're actually removing that outside shell, and you have pure tomato that's ready to be cooked and used.
That is awesome.
So last night I was telling you guys that I was grinding up some venison, getting ready to drop it into the dehydrator. Did all that, went to bed, and woke up this morning and I pulled the top off and I went to go taste test. And I'm going to tell you, it was the most horrible damn thing I've ever made in my life because I completely and totally forgot to add tallow to the deer meat. So there was absolutely no oil source, no fat source whatsoever in the meat. And now I've got a couple of pounds worth of basically deer charcoal. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I thought about grounding it and
Yeah, dog
then,
food. Feed it to your dogs.
yeah, well, it's awfully seasoned. I will say that.
Oh.
It had a little bit of what I call stank on it. It was very spicy, but I'm thinking about putting that into a blender, grinding it up as much as I can, trying to rehydrate it, and then possibly introduce a fat source into it, let that settle down, and then see what I can do with it. Hopefully, it can be salvaged. I'm not 100% sure, but I was sitting there and I crunched into a piece, and my mom looked up and she's like, "It sounds like there wasn't any fat in there." I say, "Yes, ma'am. I don't think I got it in there. I totally forgot." So, but the salvation of the tomatoes, putting them in the freezer. I when I think of farm to table, I think, what am I going to go garnish from my garden? What am I going to get from the freezer from an animal that I harvested? And what am I making for dinner for my family tonight? And the stuff that I don't have and the stuff that other people need, we have actually traded. We have traded eggs for vegetables. And we've done that actually quite a bit in our own neighborhood. We have a guy in our neighborhood who makes honey, which I desperately want to learn. We have a neighbor a few doors down. They just recently got chickens, but when our daughter had chickens, I was trading eggs to them for their vegetables that we weren't able to grow that year because of bugs or whatever. Um, that's what I think of. And when you go to a farmer's market, the stuff that you get at a farmer's market is usually pretty amazing because most farmers markets, at least here in North Carolina, they don't allow crap food. They don't allow fake stuff. It has to come from your farm. It has to come from your garden. And those are the kinds of things that we have been working for is sustainable, regenerative farming that sustains our family. And if there is extra beyond what we need to store and preserve, then that is what we can use to help other people with. Um, and it's kind of simple stuff. You're making your pasta sauce, you're making your salsas, but we also made pesto. We had a year. I think this is probably the most basil we've ever grown in a single year, and it's still going. And as much as we love basil and as much basil as we dried, we were like, dude, this is a lot of basil. What are we going to do with it? Found a recipe, and we ended up making like 6 jars of pesto, and it's freaking amazing.
So that's a
I
green
love it.
pesto
Yeah, I put
with
it on everything.
butter and garlic.
Yeah, well, we did it so you take all your basil. We actually threw in some mint and a touch of rosemary with olive oil, pine nuts, and Parmesan cheese. And you just sit there and you blend and you blend and you blend, and you want to get all your veggies going first, and then you're adding your oil. And as you're adding the oil, it's turning it into a thicker and thicker paste. When your consistency is right, and some salt. But when your consistency is right, man, I'm telling you, that stuff goes on literally everything. I have put it.
It's delicious.
It's amazing. I had, was it this morning or yesterday morning? I had eggs on top of some pork cutlets, and I put pesto on top of that. It was amazing. It was so delicious, and it lasts a really long time. You can freeze it. We ate through it so quickly that we had the jars in the fridge and we didn't even have to worry about spoilage. But
I like swapping out tomato sauce with pesto sauce sometimes just for a change of pace. You get a nice green pasta. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, if you take some of your homemade salsa or pico de gallo and you actually mix in, toss that into a food processor, and then throw in some of that pesto, I'm gonna tell you what, best dip in the world. It is amazing. You put that on eggs or you put it on top of migas and something like that, and it is incredible. Um, but another big one, and it's a future thing that I want to learn because I really want to learn how to make cheese, is we've been taking specifically our tomatoes, our jalapenos, the jalora peppers, and some other stuff, and we toss it into a casserole dish with a brick of feta cheese. Toss some olive oil all around, a little bit of salt and pepper. Put that in the oven until you start to actually see the tomatoes when you poke them, they burst. And when you poke into the feta cheese, it's really, really soft. It creates this flavor that I can't even describe to you. And we also tried that with some fruit. We actually took basil leaves from the garden, some fruit, and we did that same dish, but just with the fruit and the mint and the feta cheese, and it is absolutely amazing. And those are dishes that if you told me, hey, that's what you're going to eat, I would be perfectly okay with it. I would be absolutely okay with it because I know that the stuff came from my garden minus the cheese, but I know it's something that I grew. I knew where it came from. And I would rather have that kind of good vegetables, good fruit that came from a known source, not out somewhere in space that took 3 weeks to get to a store. I want it from the garden right then and there. And that's one of the great things. Like when you guys did the intro episode, you were talking about cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes. That's my snack when I go out to the garden. I'm just picking them and I'm moving along and I'm sitting there snacking on these little tomatoes while I'm going after everything else. The big lesson that we learned about pickling this year and canning is our pickles themselves. I did not know that certain kinds of cucumbers are meant for pickling and certain kinds of cucumbers are not. And when we switched up to garden or putting our garden into buckets, our cucumbers finally took off. So we're taking cucumbers every single day. We do a lot of cucumber and mint water, and we do a lot of cucumber salad and stuff like that. But we wanted to actually make pickles, and we had enough for about 8 jars. So I started looking up recipes, and I see the pictures. I'm following the recipe, but this particular recipe that I followed called for canning or hot water bathing. And so I followed the recipe, but I also added habaneros, ghost peppers, a couple of cayenne peppers, and a bunch of garlic. And I included our okra. A few jalapenos, food jalapenos there and here and there, but I spread it out, stuffed the jars as much as I could. I just did not take into account that when I followed that recipe, which called for a hot brine, those particular kinds of cucumbers were just going to shrink and start to brown.
Right.
And it totally threw me off because the recipe also called for water bathing. So I did it. And I pulled them out. They were green for a moment. And I got them. I heard the seals pop and I was like, yes, this works. This is awesome. And then came in the next day and I looked at them and I was like, those look off. So I did a taste test. They didn't taste off. They're fine. They actually taste good, but they were no longer crispy. They were no longer crunchy. They were no longer bright green. So we started doing a little bit of research, and we realized that those particular cucumbers are pickling cucumbers, and the correct brine is a cold brine. So you still make the brine in the same manner, but you let it cool to room temperature, and you're not actually looking for a hot top seal. You're actually making a cold brine straight to the fridge. And once the brine settles in, I didn't have the shrinkage, and I proved this. So as we got more pickles or more cucumbers, I took those brown cucumbers out, put them in another jar, and I filled that particular jar with just cucumbers that we had freshly cut. They stayed bright green, they stayed crunchy, And I was like, okay, lesson learned. This particular kind of cucumber, we had to identify it, but we're not hot bathing these. We're not doing a hot brine. We're going to have to do a cold brine. And once we learned that lesson, oh man, those cucumbers were, I mean, they were slap yo mama. They were so good. They were good and spicy. They had a nice brine taste. They weren't overwhelming. It was just it was just really good. But we had to depend on those cucumbers because those were the only ones that we got to really grow this year. The bugs got everything else. It was terrible.
So let me ask you a question. Those bucket gardening that you're doing now, those 5 gallon buckets that you're using, those are deep enough for tomato plants and for cucumbers and big, big
Oh
fruit like
yeah.
that.
Absolutely,
Really?
man. Yeah. So we actually found them at Walmart, crazy enough. They're made in the USA. They're BPA free, which is important because you don't want those BPA chemicals to leach into your soil, which
So
leaches into your
so
food.
are they food grade?
I don't know if I would say that they're food grade. They're not labeled as such.
Okay.
They're
BPA
labeled
free.
as, yeah, BPA free. They're utility buckets.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we
If you
were
don't mind me
buying,
asking, what'd you pay for those?
they were like
Oh,
$3.98.
okay. That's pretty cheap.
So very affordable. And we pretty much bought Walmart out on them. Our store that we found there was like 50 at a time. We were buying like literally 25 at a time. And it's because we have so many issues with the soil here where we live. It's so sandy, lots of loam, lots of clay. It's really hard for a lot of plants to get the nutrients and develop a base. But we're buying the buckets. We'd flip them upside down, drill 4 holes into them for drainage, and then we would start putting good, healthy soil and when in there, supplementing that, and then start planting. And I think we talked about this before, but we learned a lot about, like, for instance, the tomatoes. We were able to regenerate brand new tomato plants from the ones that we were taking the suckers off of. And you have to learn the difference between determinants and indeterminants. At one point in time, we probably had, I mean, literally 100 buckets of tomatoes. I mean, it was outrageous.
So you're
And
seriously doing a farm to table with tomatoes. I mean, you don't have to get
oh,
any of that stuff from the grocery store at all.
absolutely not. And we actually started out with all heirlooms. And that's what we wanted to do is we wanted to see, can we take an heirloom plant and extend the life of this plant and propagate it enough to where we would never have to go to the store again for a tomato. And we proved that it is absolutely obtainable. Um,
When
and
that when that happens, it is awesome because we went through the same thing with our eggs, with our chickens.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
we have not bought eggs in months now, and it's an amazing thing when that finally happens. When you're like, that's it. I don't ever
yeah.
have to buy eggs. I don't have to ever spend 12, 15 bucks on eggs anymore. I don't have to do it.
Oh,
It's done.
let me tell you something. Our plans for the future have taken off tenfold here in these past couple of years. So this winter we're building a coop. Every time I drive by the tractor fact or the tractor store, I look and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be in there in the spring and I'm gonna get so many chicks and it's gonna be so amazing. But I got to get that pen built, and I do have to build a new greenhouse. I do have to expand our garden into a more sunny area because of differences in shade. There's a lot of things that have to happen, but I think, and the same thing for okra. With the amount of okra that we planted, and we're taking it when it's about 2.5 to 3, maximum 3 inches. It still has a soft touch. It still has that sort of like a supple feeling to it. Anything beyond that, it starts to get too hard, too fibrous, and it's extremely difficult to eat unless you really boil the crap out of it. But if you take them when they're young, and you can just literally throw them into a dish and just eat them literally right then and there, or you can seed them. Anything that I'm going to seed on okra, I'm letting it get to about 3.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and open them up, take the seeds, set them off to the side. And honestly, the husk of the okra itself, after a certain point, for me personally, I don't want to eat it. Some people do. I just, once it becomes so fibrous and hard, it's just not tasty anymore to me. Um, but when we got to a point when we were harvesting, and I thought to myself, I'm never gonna have to buy this again. It was so liberating. It was freeing. It was an amazing feeling. And knowing that I could, between hunting, fishing, getting eggs from people, and our garden, I may never have to go to the store again if I choose not to. And, you know, between myself, the kids, and taking trips to hunt as well, and not having to buy a steak if we don't want to buy a steak or a burger or things like that, it's incredible to not have to go and look at those stupid prices at the store, realizing that, 4.5 to 5 years ago, a package of chicken breast cost, say, like $9. Now you're looking at $17 to $18 for the exact same weight and the exact same packaging, and it literally came from here in North Carolina, but they had to double their price. So it's a liberating feeling to be able to produce your own food. You know where it came from because you toiled and you put your actual work and effort into it. Makes everything so much better. And I do truly believe, and it can be a faith thing if that's what you want to call it, but we are meant to toil. We are meant to work the earth in order to grow the food, in order to harvest the food in the season it's which to be harvested. And that is, you're supposed to enjoy the fruits, the literal fruits of your labor. And I really do truly believe that.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. And I'm sure you guys feel the same way about it. But for me, going into the garden and working, or even working with the chickens, I get a relaxing feel. It doesn't feel like work to me.
Oh,
And
no, man.
I get very relaxed, and I feel like I'm one with nature when I'm doing it. That sounds so stupid. I know I'm hearing myself say it, but honestly, I just, an hour will go by and I'm like, wow, that was a fast hour. Lunch is over. It's like,
You want to feel something really amazing? Go out to your garden and do the exact same thing, but go barefoot. Go barefoot. Seriously, grounding. Grounding is a real thing.
is that for real?
Go out. Oh, it is absolutely real. Go out
It
to your
sounds a
garden.
little hippie-ish to me, but I'm gonna believe you, Jeremy.
I mean, it probably is, but I'm just going to tell you this. Reconnecting your feet to the ground the way that people actually used to walk and run without shoes, and working your garden at the exact same time, I'm going to tell you, you will get taken backwards in time, and you will be like, oh, okay, this is what it was supposed to be like. And I'm just telling you, it's absolutely liberating. Go out there and garden with no shoes on. Hopefully you don't get bit up by bugs, but it's like that's the way it was supposed to be.
Man, I'm having flashbacks of an old Green Acres episode.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, man, he's onto something there. I grew up, on a homestead, and we had shoes. We could afford them, but a lot of times out in the garden, everybody took them off. So I get that. Yeah, absolutely. And touching on something you said about how liberating it is to grow your own food. This is the first year that in the last I guess 3 years that I haven't done my own. I do at least one steer a year, sometimes two. And this is the first year I moved, and just it really didn't fit into my new situation, and I got to figure it out how to do it. But I'm actually a little scared because I'm getting low in my meat freezer, and I'm actually, the other day I was at a store, and I'm gonna have to buy some beef.
It's wicked expensive, man. It's incredible the prices how they've gone up right now.
Even the processing end, but at least I know that where my stuff came from, what I fed them. I don't go crazy with any hormones or anything like that. I'll deworm them. That's about it. I'm lucky enough to be in cattle country, and within 1.5 miles of here, there's buffalo and a couple. I would call them a CSA, or just a local ranch that sells right off the ranch. They actually process it on the ranch. So
I'm really interested in that. So this is true farm to table, ranch to table, more or less. How does that work? When you say you steered, explain that.
I just did it for myself. I mean, I'm used to growing up, every year we do a couple couple steers, and
Okay,
just
so how does that work? You go down, you buy one. I mean, how does that work?
yeah, we actually would buy roping steers from. I come from a rodeo family. Yeah, we farm and rope. I was kind of the black sheep. I really didn't rodeo. I couldn't stay on a horse 8 seconds, let alone go try to rope one. Putting on the saddle and riding, I wasn't a cowboy, that's for sure. I just grew up and we did 2, 3, 4 a year, just depending on how much. But I could always go out and grab a steak or grab some beef out of the freezer and go make a hamburger or make a steak, do whatever I needed. And I got moved back to where I grew up and started doing it again. And like I said, this is the first year I moved recently, and wow, I don't have that access at the moment, and I'm actually, trying to figure out how I can get that going again, because it's something about your own. I grew, I always name them lunch or dinner, steak dinner, whatever. I name it. I'm weird like that. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that you go buy a calf and you actually raise it for meat, or do you go buy a fully grown cow and you say, I want to buy this cow, Mr. Rancher, and I want you to cut it up and put it in packaging for me? What do you do?
Yeah, usually a calf. I try these roping steers are usually about a year old, and so you put them out in a pasture for about another year. And so the magic number for me is about 2 years, and then I feed them out. They're just out in pasture, wintertime, where we're feeding them a little bit of hay. And then I feed them out for 4 months. I got a feeding program to where, I get them nice and marbled and fat. And then I take them and process them. And wow, you'll be surprised. The last one I did, I filled up 3/4, and I have a larger truck. And my bed was almost full of meat. And I had a couple other people that wanted, part of it. So I quartered it out. I took a quarter. A couple of people, they all took a quarter. And so it worked out well, Basically, I paid for my portion of the meat by other people, buying their share. And, I made it under what they would buy it at Walmart. We kind of, figured that part out. And it works out great. But, like I said, I'm in cattle country now, so I can go down and do a subscription for about, roughly $100, $120 a month and get, the most fabulous steaks and beef and bratwurst and whatever else, they have, roast, whatever they have at the time. And it's kind of neat.
That's awesome.
I'm in a unique situation, so. But it's out there all around. I mean, just go out and search it out.
Yeah. And this is another reason why I'm so glad that I learned how to butcher when I was a kid. The amount of money that we have saved on red meat by processing and butchering our own deer is pretty incredible. And I used to go to a processor, and I do understand the concept of, the butcher's cut. You're going to lose some portion of that animal. But when I really realized, dude, you know how to do this, and I started doing my own butchering, because I don't trophy hunt. When that's for young kids, guys who are like, oh yeah, I'm only waiting for the big antlers. I don't care about that crap anymore. I want meat. I have no qualms whatsoever with filling my tag, which is 6 doe, to its maximum before I even concern myself of whether or not I want to take a buck, because that's exactly what I'm after, is meat. But you take, say, 120, 125 pound deer, and you're getting a significant amount of meat. You still got to take all the bad stuff out. You still got to take the guts out. You still got to get it tested. But the amount of meat that you are able to garnish from one deer for a family is pretty incredible. It's a lot of work, but I do truly believe that if you are going to hunt and you're going to harvest an animal from the time that you decide to pull the trigger to the very end till you consume that animal, I think that particular process lies within the hunter itself. That person should be able to take care of all of those things.
So when you say getting it tested, are you testing for CWD, the chronic wasting disease?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. They do have testing stations here. And depending on what county you're in, here in North Carolina, you might be on a secondary testing site or a primary, or they do alternates. But it is important. And honestly, I was having this conversation, I think today, with someone, that when you see CWD in a deer that's advanced, you can see it. You can tell. It's
Yeah,
kind of like,
they don't look right.
yeah, they look drunk. They
Yeah.
look like they're lobbying about. They just kind of look off.
Yeah, it's a little sad.
And yeah, it's actually a great description. And I was trying to tell a young lady, if you've ever seen an animal, for instance, with rabies, that's normally nocturnal. Like if you see a raccoon out in the middle of the day, unafraid to be near you, possibly turn in circles, something is wrong with that raccoon. Same thing with a deer that has CWD. And this is where I do believe in ethical culling of animals. If you see what you think might be a problem, you do need to cull that animal. You do need to thin that herd. Take it to get tested, and it will not count against your tag. If you've culled an animal that you suspect of having CWD and you immediately call Fish and Game, they don't have to count it against your tag. And it's helpful also because that helps them to identify potential problem areas where it is spreading, because it is a problem. It is a very real problem, and it's getting a little worse every year.
Yeah, we've got it in our county for sure. I haven't seen any of these deer. We got a lot of deer here, man. They're everywhere, but I haven't seen it personally yet. But I know I checked the sites, and our county has got cases of it. So
Mhm.
yeah,
And again, you can see it if you know what you're looking for. If you know what the signs are, um, it becomes kind of obvious. But it literally does look like a drunk, staggering animal. Um, which I also have seen a drunk animal. It is quite funny. Um, but yeah, CWD. It's a. If I did see a deer that I even really suspected that it actually did have CWD, and not just, maybe it had been eating fermented, berries or something, I would call that animal, and then I would go ahead and call Fish and Game, and I would actually have them come. I want them to come to me. I want them to mark that spot. And then I want them to do the testing, because if I did find a deer where I normally hunt, I would have to abandon that area and hope that the spread stops, with that animal.
yeah, exactly. So, buddy, on farm to table, what's your thoughts? What's your feelings?
I think everybody should be doing it. If you're listening to this podcast, you're at least prepper curious, and preppers are going to make their own food. I mean, when it comes to at the end of the day, if you can't make your own food, your survival likelihood is very slim. So if you're not already at least container gardening or trying it out, maybe experimenting, like Jeremy said earlier, and he made a great point about it. It's gardening is an experiment. I mean, it's not exact science at all. I mean, I've gone to get some formal training and failed miserably at stuff. And it's weird because sometimes you'll have a bumper crop, and next year you won't get any. So if you're not doing it, you're doing it wrong, in my opinion. You grow something, you learn how to grow, and that window of time where I'll wait till spring, and well, we might not have a spring, or this spring might be the last spring. I've talked with people, in the prepper community, and we'll get a tinfoil hat with this, but they're thinking, well, this might be the last Christmas. I'm going, what? But start thinking about it.
They thinking Civil War.
Yes, among other things. I mean, there's religious people out there thinking, they're checking off the blocks, with their beliefs and stuff. So, but yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to go down the road there, but
Well, you gotta think about this, man. You gotta think about the preparedness / prepper community, and you gotta think about that faith base that a lot of people have. And there are a lot of things that do check off that list of, Well, I guess this is what it is. That there's a connection there. But I got to tell you something, man. That statement that you just made of if you're not doing it, you're doing it wrong. Holy crap, that is profound, man. That literally ties into everything of what we as people who believe in preparedness and prepping do. Physical fitness, gardening, growing your own meat, harvesting your own animals, and an ability to actually put that food on the table, being able to leave what you know behind and start a new life if you had to. If you're not doing it, you're doing it wrong. That is incredible. That
Yeah,
right there just wraps
it
up
is.
like everything.
It is. And and I would also say that if I would put a challenge out there to actually all of our listeners and see if we can get them to grow something. We talked about what to grow in what we can grow in this time of season, in the fall and winter. Grow something, and maybe even if you don't want to grow some big plants, maybe you grow some herbs that you can do right in
Yeah.
your windowsills or something like that. In the last apartment we had in Kansas City, we had I think 13 or 14 big potted plants on our patio. Now, most of the stuff we were growing there, we had some peppers and this and that. We had a lemon tree, but they were just more of the stuff was just decorative, really just for privacy. But my point is, even if you're living in an apartment, which is basically the smallest domicile you can live in, you can still grow stuff, and you don't have to grow all of it. Just grow one thing. So my challenge would be to everybody listening right now is grow something. Go down to the store, get some seeds of what we listen to the podcast that talks about the fall and winter growing. Go down to the store, get some seeds, put them in some dirt, and grow them. 2 weeks ago we planted. We talked about it on the episode, right? The stuff that we had planted. We were out in the garden today, and they're 3 and 4 inches tall already. They're ready to be transplanted to a bigger area. So this can be done. It really is not that hard, but you got to start someplace. And like you said, if you're not doing it, you're doing it wrong. It's a great statement.
Oh, dude, that's so huge. And I would further that challenge. Go grow something, go harvest an animal, and put it on the Facebook page. Let everybody see it. And then talk about what went right and what went wrong.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I'd love to see that on the bunker.
Yeah, one more thing. Go get some seed. Right now, they're having. I was in a tractor supply store the other day. I keep saying tractor supply. Maybe I should say tractor store. But anyhow, there's seeds out there. I was in a dollar store. There are seeds. Get seeds and store them properly. A dark, cool area. Put them in a groceries a paper sack. Stick them in the bottom of your refrigerator. And just let them go until next spring. But have seeds online because one day they might not be there. So have some ready to go. That's just the way.
I should take a picture of all of our seeds prepared right now. Rhonda's got them all in paper towel sacks that she made. Each one of them marked with with a little flip on each one of them. Just piles of them that she's got all saved up and drying, getting ready for the next season.
Yeah, and in these larger, going back to some of these places that grow for farmers markets and CSAs and co-ops and stuff, they order their stuff early. They're ordering stuff now for the next spring because there's always shortages. If I can give you some examples, but there will be shortages, and there has been shortages. So think ahead. You don't go just wake up one day, and I've said this before. You don't wake up one day and roll out of bed and go, I think I'm going to have a garden today, and then run down to the store and go grab your stuff and go and plant it. You need to plan it out,
Yep.
Do some research. It takes a little time doing the research, but, get what will grow in your area, get the right seeds, plan it out, plan a season ahead, and win this battle, because one day you might be eating out of your garden, or you might be out behind your addition or your apartment complex foraging for food. So,
Well, and I think that the statement that you're really trying to make is that one day you will be eating out of your garden. You just don't want to have to eat out of your garden. When that happens, we're in shit hit the fan. You know, I mean, I want to eat out of my garden all the time. So do you guys. That's now that I'm doing it, I want to do it all the time.
Yeah.
The food is just amazing that comes out of your own dirt. It really is.
To me, and I've said it before, there's nothing better. Nothing. And Jeremy agreed with me the other day, so you have to agree with me again. But a tomato out of your own garden, there's nothing better.
There ain't nothing gooder in this world, man. I'm telling you.
Yes, mo better.
Yo, Mo Betta, I'm telling you right now, if you pull a heirloom Cherokee purple tomato off of a plant and you just dig in on that sucker, you ain't never going to experience anything the same. But I will say this. I will never try to harvest a stupid tomato seed again because it is so damn difficult. I will buy tomato seeds in bulk to avoid trying to harvest the same stupid seeds. I have not gotten the technique down. I have tried, and I just cannot get that particular seed technique down. So I will buy.
We watched a video last night about how to cull, or I don't know what the word is, but pulling the seeds out of the plants. And the guy was doing tomatoes, and he took them out, and they've got that sort of mucus membrane around each one of the seeds. Yeah. And he would put them into a jar, a mason jar, and he would fill the jar with nice clean water, and then he would cover it with a paper towel and put a rubber band on it so that it would keep some air to go into it. And then he would leave it on his counter for about a week, I think, and then it would get real nasty. But what happens is, sitting in that water, that mucus membrane will actually come off of the seed. And it takes some time, and when you pour it out, you got to hold your nose because it's just, it's a rotting tomato. It's pretty bad. But I think cucumbers do the same thing. But I agree with you, man. And not only that, but help out some of the local people that do have the seeds that you want to buy. Just buy them from them. Spend the $1 or $2 or $3, whatever it is on the package.
Yeah, absolutely. I will buy heirloom seeds all day long to fill our own personal catalog. But the stuff that's easy to harvest, like for instance, okra seeds. Okra seeds are ridiculously easy to harvest. They're pretty large. They're firm. Stuff like most of your melons, super easy. The seeds themselves are easy to harvest. But there's some seeds I'm going to buy all day long. I just don't want to mess with tomato seeds. It's just too much of a pain. So I'll spend the money that I want to spend on a couple of years worth of heirloom tomatoes, and I'll be perfectly happy with that purchase.
My prepper brothers and sisters, we've explored the wonderful world of growing your own produce and how it can lead to greater self-sufficiency. From selecting the right seeds to learning the ins and outs of nurturing your plants, it's clear that anyone can cultivate their own little oasis of fresh food regardless of their space or experience. Remember, every journey starts small. Whether you're planting a single herb on your windowsill or transforming your backyard into a hobby farm, each step brings you closer to that rewarding feeling of harvesting your own food. Plus, there's nothing quite like the taste of farm-to-table produce, especially when that farm is yours. Stay prepped, stay happy. Thanks for listening, and good night.